All right, breaking news coming in. We were all waiting for the verdict on Vinesh Phogat. Guess what? There is a delay. That's what we're learning from Paris right now. That the hearing before the Court of Arbitration for Sport that has been on. There were deliberations, long 3-hour long deliberations that were done yesterday. An operational order has been awaited. We are expecting around 9:30 that there would be the verdict, there would be an order passed by the CAS, but that's not the case right now. There is another delay, a 24-hour delay as things stand in the Vinesh Phogat case, and we will try and break down to you what is it that it means for the Indian fan. What does it mean for Vinesh Phogat as well? Nikhil, in fact, joining me right now from Paris. Nikhil, you've been at the court for this very case for 3 days now. Tell us, what is it that the fan right now, the Indian fan, how is the Indian fan supposed to look at this? Is there maybe a glimmer of hope? The fact that if the rules were watertight, maybe the case would have been shot down immediately. But perhaps there's been a delay now. Can the Indian fan look at this development with some hope?
Very tough to say that at the moment, Harshit. We don't know what to make of it. Usually, I can only go by past precedent. Usually, the CAS, the Court of Arbitration for Sports, has taken about 24 hours to announce an interim verdict. That's been the practice, and that is something that they've done on multiple times before. This is, again, just as the case by itself, Vinesh Phogat's case, this in itself is unprecedented, where they've asked for a deadline not once but twice. So clearly, I mean, it's not as clear-cut as what we had once thought. Clearly, it isn't just, going by the rule book that UWW did. This is obviously going beyond that, and if it is taking indeed that much time for them to decide, that means, I mean, and this is just speculation, that if I were an Indian fan, I would look at it more positively, because initially what looked like an open and shut case, following the law of the sport, you didn't think Vinesh Phogat had much chance. Now they extended it by another 24 hours. That means that they were looking at all angles possible. You were tempted to believe that a major ruling may be on its way. Now it's gone for another 24 hours, so which is now 11th of August. And remember, why is it come to 11th of August? I think they can't extend it beyond that, because remember, the other thing that you have with CAS is that it has to come before the Olympic Games end. And the Olympic Games actually end on the 11th of August. There is the closing ceremony, and the finale of the closing ceremony, when the flame is actually passed over to LA, would be around midnight. So that is when the games are declared closed. So they would have to announce before that. But I guess, there's lots of deliberations, many heads probably, sitting and thinking about it, which is why this extension has happened. The only thing I can, conclude from all of this, subtract from all of this, is that something that was minimal chance for Vinesh now seems like there is a realistic chance for her to get the verdict in her favor.
Also, since it's been pushed by 24 hours and there's so much happening in Paris, Nikhil, for tomorrow, it's the last day. The closing ceremony India time has to happen at 12:30. There's exactly a 24-hour delay, if I'm not wrong, in the verdict, in the order that's to be released. India time, are we to expect it at 9:30, which would be 6 o'clock for you over there in Paris?
That's right. It is exact 24-hour extension they've got. So if you remember, it was to be day before at 6 p.m. local time, 9:30 p.m. India time. That got extended to another 24 hours, which is going to be today. And look at the timing of it. The extension and the news of the extension has come to us bang at the time that the clock struck 6 here. So we were waiting and we were counting down. Remember, the deadline is just an indication as to by when can the result come out. Of course, more often than not, that actually comes out many hours before that. But we actually waited, and it was a bit surprising here that are they going to announce it exactly at the moment that the deadline gets over at 6 p.m.? That's not usually the case, but it was. And then exactly at 6 we get to know, no, they've asked for another deadline, which means that they are racing against time, which means that there are equal compelling arguments from both sides, which is then forcing the arbitrator, which is then forcing the panel that will have to take a call, ask for more time to get more clarity, maybe look at the more backgrounders. Also, maybe because we know that if this verdict was to come in Vinish's favor, it's going to have much deeper repercussions for the sport of wrestling per se. So all of those things have to be considered, and I think, I mean, you are a bit sympathetic towards the person who will have to make this decision, because it's not going to be an easy one, and to make it in 24 hours probably wouldn't have been fair on the arbitrator as well. That's why the extension for 48, and now it's gone for over 3 days.
Okay, Aishwarya also joining me in the studio right now. Aishwarya, I believe you've got some questions for Nikhil over here.
Well, Nikhil, you were speaking about the fact that we have to look at the history, and CAS actually was in the spotlight after Manchester City successfully appealed the 2-year ban from the European football competition. This took place in 2020, and at that time we saw the CAS had cleared the club of the disguising equity funds sponsorship contributions. So, looking at the precedents also, it becomes very, very important, because the CAS also at the moment knows that all the eyes, not just in India, but as you rightly pointed out, in the wrestling world at the moment will be on the CAS.
Well, that's absolutely right, Aishwarya. Let me just give you a bit of a context. I'm actually coming to you live from the main media center of the Olympic Games. This is a massive 3-story structure where you at any given point of time have more than 500, 600, sometimes close to 1,000 journalists working, press photographers, and if you walk around here, as I have been for the last few hours, I have come across many journalists from various other parts of the world asking us, knowing fully well that we're Indian journalists, as to what is happening in that particular case, because as you mentioned, this is not just going to make headlines in India, it's going to make headlines globally, simply because it's not just a matter, of course, we in India are looking at it from the point of view of another medal and justice being done to Vinesh. For the rest of the world, they're looking at it, what is the kind of repercussions it's going to have on the sport, because if and just to let our viewers know, if the judgment was to come in Vinesh Phogat, then I don't think going forward you can really have the second day weigh in. You cannot have that at all, and that'll be a major change. Maybe going forward they'll have to do away with weighing in on day 2. Maybe they'll have weighing in on just day 1, or the other option could be, which is something that we see during World Championships in wrestling, the competition actually doesn't go over for 2 days. All your bouts are actually fought, which could be close to 4 to sometimes 5 bouts in a day. They're all done over a period of 24 hours. So you start in the morning and it goes on till night. Of course, you get breathers in the middle, and maybe that is something that they'll have to do. And I guess that will play a major role, because they will, when they refer to various other cases as to how that weight gain could have happened, they probably could question the UWW as to why is it that in World Championship level you have it in a day and you only having weighing in once. Why is it that you change it during the Olympic Games? Why are there different rules for the same sport in 2 different competitions? So those could be the areas that can go in Vinesh Phogat's case. So we'll have to wait and watch, and I guess all these things will have to be considered. There are a few lacunas, there are a few loopholes, which I'm sure the legal minds that India have tried to work on. Remember, if I talk to you about the arguments, they did not get into the technicality of the rule, because you knew by the rule book it would be tough to win that case. They went and took a look at the larger picture, the macro picture they looked at. What we've got now is Sanjay Singh, the president of the Wrestling Federation of India. Sanjay ji, सबसे पहले तो इंडिया टुडे से बात करने के लिए बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। कुछ ही दिन पहले मैंने आपसे पेरिस में भी बातचीत की थी, आपने तब कहा था हम पूरी कोशिश वहाँ पे कर रहे हैं। हमारे दर्शकों को बताएंगे, अगर आपको पता लगा है, आपका पहले क्या प्रतिक्रिया है? आप खुश हैं कि डेडलाइन एक्सटेंड हो रही है, या आपको लगता है नहीं ये नहीं करनी चाहिए थी, जल्द से जल्द आप नतीजा दीजिए, या आप इसको पॉजिटिव तरीके से ले रहे हैं कि नहीं, अगर डेडलाइन एक्सटेंड हो रही है तो क्या पता खुशखबरी आ रही हो? क्या है आपको, क्या लग रहा है?
पॉजिटिव तरीके से इसको पॉजिटिव तरीके से लिया जा रहा है, क्योंकि कुछ रूल रेगुलेशन है, उससे वो लोग आपस में डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, उसी के लिए फिर उन्होंने डेट लिया है। हेलो,
आप क्या लगातार उनसे चर्चा में हैं, जो लॉयर्स जो जुड़े हुए हैं इस पूरे केस के साथ, क्या उन्होंने आपको किस तरह से बताया है कि किस तरह से उन्होंने आर्ग्यूमेंट पेश करी या किस तरफ केस जा रहा है?
नहीं, उसका डिटेल उन्होंने नहीं बताया है, डिटेल नहीं बताया है। डिटेल उसको कॉन्फिडेंशियल रखने के लिए बोला गया है, इसलिए डिटेल उन्होंने कुछ नहीं बताया है उसका। ये बताया कि पॉजिटिव है इसमें।
एक चीज आप और हमें
हाँ जी,
अच्छा, अभी तक ये बताया पॉजिटिव, ये बड़ी अहम बात संजय सिंह हमें बता रहे हैं। एक आखिरी सवाल इससे पहले मैं आपको जाने दूं, आपको लगता है जो रेसलिंग का खेल है, अगर ये विनीश के पक्ष में आ जाता है नतीजा, भारत में तो खुशी की लहर ज़रूर रहेगी, लेकिन रेसलिंग के खेल के नज़रिए से आपको लगता है फिर आगे जाके शायद नियमों में बदलाव करने पड़ेंगे, क्योंकि यहाँ आप विनीश के लिए एक नियम में बदलाव कर रहे हैं अगर उनको यहाँ पर मेडल देते हैं?
कि नियमों में बदलाव करने का पावर UWW को है, तो अब इस पे बहुत कुछ हम कह नहीं पाएंगे। हेलो,
चलिए, मैं समझ सकता हूँ
UWW जो भी डिसीजन लेना होगा UWW लेगा, इस पे हम लोग कुछ नहीं कह पाएंगे जी।
जी, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। संजय सिंह जी हमारे साथ बात कर रहे थे, द हेड ऑफ रेसलिंग फेडरेशन ऑफ इंडिया। ऑफ कोर्स, एज ही सेड, a lot of other things that we are now looking at going forward would be very tough for him to tell in detail at the moment, but the one very interesting thing that Sanjay Singh there mentions, because he's been in touch with the legal minds that have been working on the case, the one very important thing that he touched upon is that the only feedback that he's got from the legal minds that it is moving in a positive direction. Now, make of it whatever you might, but it certainly is a very positive news. It's certainly a bit of news that is going to give a lot of Indian fans a lot of hope when it comes to this Vinesh Phogat case. The way I see it, Aishwarya as well as Harshit, that we started with a scenario where there was zero chance for her to get a medal. It reached to about a 5-10% chance as soon as she filed an appeal in CAS, and it was accepted. I think that moved to about a good 20-25% chance when you decided to have someone like Harish Salve and Vidushpat Singhania on board. And I think the fact that it's been extended twice now, over 48 hours, I think it is moving the scales. I'm not saying it's tilting completely in Vinesh's favor, but it clearly is putting the scales in balance at the moment.
The one more thing, Nikhil, we heard that the deliberation, the arguments were made for as long as 3 hours yesterday, and there was Vinesh Phogat also self present, making a virtual presence in that hearing, in that long drawn out hearing that took place yesterday. Today also, have you been able to pick anything from your sources whether she was present in virtual capacity today as well?
No, there was no hearing today, Harshit, so nobody was present today. She was there in the virtual capacity when the hearing took place. At the moment, there is no other hearing that has happened from the one that's happened before. All that the arbitrator is asked for is more time. The decision, the arbitrator had heard arguments on that day, 3 hours, heard all the arguments. Now the arbitrator wants it was to be done 24 hours, asked for another extension, and now has asked for another extension. So about 48 hours is what the arbitrator is asking for. Remember, the first deadline actually wasn't taken by the arbitrator to take a call. The first deadline, actually, the 24-hour deadline started actually when they accepted to hear. Remember, the hearing was to take place a bit earlier, then it got pushed. So the 24-hour deadline started from that time. So from the time of the hearing that's happened, so it's not been 3 days per se, roughly around 2.5 days. But I mean, the main point or the crux of the entire matter is that they are asking for an extension, which means that they're taking more time than they usually take to come at a conclusion.
Well, Nikhil, at the moment, what's very, very important, and maybe that's the reason why the CAS has, they have made sure that they have temporary offices in all the cities, whichever cities host the Olympics. So, that's what we are seeing here in Paris also at the moment. The big question, Nikhil, as you were putting everything in perspective, is that the chances of us getting a silver are increasing with each, delay in the 24 hours. Nikhil, also, from what I understand at the moment, they'll have to give the verdict before the closing ceremony of the Olympics takes place.
Well, that's right. Exactly as I had explained earlier, Aishwarya, the closing ceremony is tomorrow. Right now it is about 6:30 p.m. local time, and the closing ceremony is due to start in about 25 hours from now. And of course, the Olympics officially close by around 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m., which is going to be well past midnight in India. So it'll be Monday morning. So that's when the Olympic Games close. So you have to take a decision before that, which is not to say that they will then ask for another extension of 6 p.m. on Sunday. That's the deadline here in Paris, 6 p.m. on Sunday. Of course, the Olympics will close by 11 p.m. So you have another 4-5 hours to go. But that's not necessarily that they may go till that far. Usually what happens, it's late in the evening is by when the decision comes, and that's exactly what's been happening. In this case, there is no verdict as such, but even the decision to extend usually comes around this time. So you could be hopeful. I don't think you can get another extension of another 24 hours tomorrow. So whether it's 6 p.m. or maybe you take another few hours extension, that's another matter. But you could be rest assured that whatever the decision should be known to us by tomorrow.
Nikhil, please stay on with me now. Even as the medal verdict has been delayed by 24 hours, there's a chorus that is growing for silver for Vinesh. Let's listen into all the reactions coming in with regards to what the people of the country at the moment are seeking for.
हमको सबको पता है मेडल मिलेगा तो बहुत ही अच्छा रहेगा, मेडल नहीं मिलेगा तो वो हमको पता है कि जो सिचुएशन जो हुई अगर वो नहीं होती तो मेडल तो ऐसे ही पक्का था. जब तक मेडल नहीं होता गले में वो एक चीज़ रह ही जाती है. लोग थोड़े दिन तक याद करते हैं, बोलेंगे कि यू आर आवर चैम्पियन, हमारे लिए आप चैम्पियन हो. लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि जब तक वो मोमेंट ना हो, हम पोडियम पे ना हो, तो वो बहुत जल्दी भूल भी जाते हैं. तो मुझे ये डर है बस, अगर लोग नहीं भूलेंगे तो मेडल है नहीं है उससे फ़र्क नहीं पड़ेगा. बस मैं लोगों से ये रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ कि जो विनेश ने किया है अपनी कंट्री के लिए उसको ना भूलें. बस
पूरी आस उम्मीद है कि हमारे हक में फैसला आएगा. मुझे पूरी आस उम्मीद है 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों को 13 तारीख को फिर जो है खुशी मिलने की मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है. मुझे न्यायालय पर भरोसा है. अच्छे वकील करें भारत सरकार ने, और हम सब जो है 13 तारीख का इंतजार करेंगे. ज़्यादा कोई अच्छी खुशखबरी आने की मुझे पूरी आस उम्मीद है.
इसको पॉजिटिव तरीके से लिया जा रहा है क्योंकि कुछ रूल रेगुलेशन है, उससे वो लोग आपस में डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, उसी के लिए फिर उन्होंने डेट लिया है. उसका डिटेल उन्होंने नहीं बताया है, डिटेल उसको कॉन्फिडेंशियल रखने के लिए बोला गया है, इसलिए डिटेल उन्होंने कुछ नहीं बताया है. उसका ये बताया कि पॉजिटिव है इसमें, कि नियमों में बदलाव करने का पावर UWW को है. इस पे बहुत कुछ हम कह नहीं पाएंगे.
Okay, Nikhil continues to be with us, joining us from Paris. He's been tracking this story right from the time it broke out and Vinesh wasn't allowed to participate in that all-important final that she was supposed to fight in, but 100 grams over is what she weighed and that's why she wasn't allowed. Nikhil, coming to you now. In terms of the support for Vinesh Phogat, who are those important personnel from the IOA that still happen to be there and are with Vinesh in this tough time? Of course, the nation rallying behind her right now, but in terms of the heads of the IOA, who all happen to be still in Paris and are closely looking at the case?
Well, the entire IOA contingent is here, Harshit. So it's led by, of course, the president of the Indian Olympic Association in PT Usha. She is staying here, not too far away from where I am. Then you also have the chef de mission in Gagan Narang, who has been constantly in touch with the happenings. In fact, he was the one, if you remember, on the night when Vinesh was desperately trying to lose the weight, he was by her side, and then when she was admitted to the hospital as well, he was right there. So everyone that you can think of is here. By the way, India's representative in the IOC, Mrs. Neeta Amani, she is also here in Paris. She has been traveling for a lot of games. She was there today facilitating Neeraj Chopra not too long ago. So there was a felicitation function that happened from about half an hour from where I'm standing. So she's also here at the moment. So everyone and anyone who is involved with Indian sport at the moment and are in a position to help finish out are here. So and everyone's waiting with bated breath. I mean, even the people that are working behind the scenes, and I have been interacting with a few legal minds. See, we keep talking about some of the big names that are working, but there is an entire team of lawyers in India that are assisting Harish Salve and Vidushpat Singhania. So, having touch base with some of them, they've been working overnight because they are the ones who are researching, bringing out notes, various other things to help in the argument. All of them have been waiting with bated breath as to what the outcome is going to be. They were as surprised as I am that the first time it was extended and now it has been extended for the second second time. And actually speaking to some of those legal minds, I do get an idea, and this is the kind of sense that I'm getting from them, that the fact that it's being extended gives them hope. They started this case with hope, of course. That's the reason that they decided to take this case. But you know, the chances of getting a positive outcome was less. Even in their minds, those chances seem to have increased drastically after 2 extensions that we've had so far.
Nikhil, please stay on with me now. You know, just despite being over by 100 grams, now Vinesh Phogat's quest for justice continues. She's made an appeal for a silver medal in front of the Court of the Arbitration for Sports. Now, she's been represented by an elite legal team. Her case now hinges on arguments about her natural weight, the fluctuations that take place, and about the fundamental rights of athletes. Our next report will tell you exactly what Vinesh Phogat at the moment is fighting for.
Blood, sweat, tears, and fight to the finish. A trailblazer in wrestling who was denied Olympic glory for being barely 100 grams overweight. Vinesh Phogat filed an appeal for a silver medal with the ad hoc division of the Court of Arbitration for Sports. The wrestler said she was replaced because of her failed second weigh-in, a decision taken by the United World Wrestling. She had initially sought a decision from the CAS ad hoc division annulling the challenged decision and asked for a declaration naming her eligible and qualified to participate in the final. Vinesh was represented by top legal eagles. Harish Salve, Supreme Court advocate and former Solicitor General of India, appeared for India Olympic Association. Vidushpat Singhania, a sports legal expert, appeared as amicus curiae in the arbitration court. 4 pro bono lawyers, experts in sports law, arbitration and litigation who represented Vinesh are Joel Monluis, Estelle Ivanova, Habin Estelle Kim, and Charles Amson. The legal team's case was built on 4 arguments. Vinesh's body weight was under the prescribed limit on day 1 of competition. Her weight gain was due to body's natural recovery process. As an athlete, it is her fundamental right to replenish her body and look after it. And lastly, Vinesh did not commit any fraud. The CAS is expected to deliver its verdict before the Olympics closing ceremony. With a formidable legal team by her side, the hope for justice and recognition hangs in the balance for Vinesh Phogat. Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, that's exactly what's been happening. We tried putting the story down for you. We tried breaking it down. But of course, there continues to be a lot of concern. There continues to be a lot of weight for the Indian fans as far as what is it that the fate will be for Vinesh Phogat. Will she get her hands on to the silver medal? It's not been nice for her in the Olympics in Rio 2016. She got injured. She had an injury to her knee. And look what's happened now, just 8 years later. And we're still trying to see whether there is a silver medal there for Vinesh Phogat. Let me go back to Nikhil, who continues to be with us. Nikhil, all eyes obviously on Vinesh Phogat, the nation really backing her right now. But as far as the global sentiment is concerned, what is it that you're hearing, since you're surrounded by so many other reporters from other countries as well? You just briefly pointed out that there's about 1,000 odd journalists who happen to be there covering the Olympics. What is it that the Western world is also looking at? What is it that the sporting fraternity is looking at this particular verdict?
Well, you know, as far as the journalists are concerned, a few foreign journalists that I've spoke to, they have taken massive interest in this entire case, because as I said earlier as well, that it just doesn't concern, for them, it's not about winning or losing a medal, which we may be looking at it like that. For them, it's about what happens to the sport, because remember, a lot of those countries have had wrestlers, and maybe not in this Olympic Games, but they've had situations where their wrestlers have been disqualified for a similar thing. We had a Japanese wrestler very recently, who supported, by the way, Vinesh Phogat on social media platform X, put a tweet out asking her to come out of the retirement, and he put an inspirational story out. He was competing last Olympic Games in Japan, and being a Japanese, it was his home games. He was found to be just 50 grams overweight. Remember, Vinesh, we were talking about 100 grams, that's nothing. That wrestler was 50 grams overweight, and he was disqualified in a games that were held in his own country. So, and then he said, okay, fine, I'll still fight to win a medal, came to the games here in Paris and won the gold medal. So he was trying to, really motivate Vinesh by saying, don't retire, go for it, another shot. So there have been cases in the past. That's why a lot of other journalists are interested, because if it is a decision given in Vinesh's favor, then it's going to change the sport forever. And whether then the other point will be whether you're going to look back at all of these scenarios retrospectively as well. Sometime it's happened. CAS has taken a call, and then based on that decision, some retrospectively you've given medals to a few other athletes. Then maybe other foreign athletes may be involved. If not, what happens to the sport going forward? Will you continue with this rule of having weighing in 2 days in a row, or will you continue having the sport of wrestling in a particular weight category over 2 days, or you return back to that 1 day format that you had a few years ago? So those are things, and that the world media are interested in at the moment. In terms of support, you've also got support from a lot of other athletes. I spoke to you about the Japanese wrestler. You've got Jordan Burroughs, a legendary American wrestler who's here on commentary assignment. He actually put out a tweet in favor of Vinesh. He's a massive fan of Vinesh, and he is one of those wrestlers that has advocated changing rules. He said this rule is not fair. You should not have weighing in on back-to-back days. Either do it on first day, or then have the entire competition on one day. If not that, then probably you should have some sort of a leeway. If a cutoff is certain, at a certain point, then 100, 200 grams, something like that, you should look at it more compassionately, as in, the spirit of sport, of spirit of competition. And if it is within that, you should allow an athlete to compete, especially if the athlete has made it to the final. So those are things that even he's been advocating here. So Vinesh is overall getting a lot of support. In fact, even from general people here in Paris, and fans that are traveling from different parts of the country, including the local Parisians who've been watching the games. A lot of them have come and asked me about that Vinesh Phogat case, and said that we feel for her. She did so well, beat the reigning Olympic and world champion, and then to reach the final. We were looking forward to that final bout with the American wrestler, and then she gets disqualified just for 100 grams. So there has been a lot of chatter all around. That's why the world is now looking at this particular case with great intent.
All right, Nikhil, thank you so much for bringing to us all those details from Paris. A 24-hour deferment over there that we've seen as far as the verdict is concerned. 9:30 Indian Standard Time is when we were expecting it to happen today. It's being pushed for another 24 hours, 6 p.m. Paris time tomorrow on the 11th of August, which also happens to be the last day of the Paris Olympics. That's when the verdict will come out. Indian Standard Time, that means 9:30 p.m. But since we're talking about the Vinesh Phogat case, let's give you a holistic view as to what's happened since the time that the story broke. Let's give you a timeline of the events and how they really panned out to be, starting from the 7th of August. That's when she was disqualified from being overweight by just 100 grams before the final. This is the day that the final had to take place, but Vinesh Phogat was disqualified because she was found to be 100 grams overweight. The same day, the IOA approached the UWW, which is the body that looks after world wrestling, and the IOC, but to no avail. The message that came from the UWW and the IOC was that the rules are clear, they're watertight, and that there cannot be anything or any sort of an exception be made over here, so there's nothing that can be done. What happens next? The following day, the IOA then takes Vinesh's case to the Court of Arbitration for Sport as the last resort, because nothing that the UWW and OC was doing. So the last resort then for the IOA was to get representation for Vinesh Phogat at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, a body that is the last resort when it comes to situations, when it comes to challenging decisions made by sporting bodies, and that happened on the 8th of August. The very same day, there were two demands that were made as the matter was listed. Two main demands that were made by the IOA and Vinesh were that first, allow participation in the final, and then award joint silver medal. That is what those two demands were. The first demand was shot down. The first option, the CAS court ruled out option 1, saying that there is no time and that the final is scheduled, so it will happen as has been decided. The CAS, though, accepted the argument for a joint silver medal. The second demand, that was for a joint silver medal, is what we're looking at and awaiting right now, a decision for which will happen on the 11th of August. Now, we'll come to that, but the very same day, there were 4 pro bono lawyers from the Paris bar that gave Vinesh representation, eminent lawyers from the Paris bar. 4 of them gave Vinesh representation, along with Harish Salve and Vidushpat Singhania. Vidushpat Singhania is known to fight such cases, is known to have expertise in such matters. Harish Salve, of course, the former Solicitor General, and he was roped in as well. He joined virtually when the hearing took place, and the hearing, which happened on the 9th of August, then happened for as long as 3 hours. Arguments were made for 3 hours, and then the very same day, the CAS extended time for the judgment by another 24 hours. The expectation was that the verdict would come out on the 9th. There was a 24-hour extension over to the 10th of August, which is where we stand right now. The verdict was expected. The verdict was expected at 9:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, and now we're getting to know from Paris that there is a further extension of 24 hours and that the verdict will be announced tomorrow.